My name is Janie Elizabeth Underwood Getchia. I am the determined achiever.
My name is Barbara Lynn Mavea Getchia Vasquez, and Janie is my mom. I am second born of four girls.
I was born Frances Adele Getchia, but my father did not understand how a girl could have a boy's name. So he changed it to Jerry Adele Getchia, named me after two of his aunts. In America, Jerry just sounds like a boy's name anyway, so he didn't quite, anyway. But then I got married, and now my name is Jerry Adele Getchia Broussard, and I am the fourth daughter.
My name is Evan Harris Black, and I am the second eldest grandchild.
My name is Samuel Armand Kiruru Black. I still have trouble pronouncing that, but I am her grandchild.
My name is Isaiah, and Janie is my Shosho.
They call me Shosho, C-U-C-U, which is grandmother in my husband's language. My parents are Benny Underwood and Lillian Logan Underwood. And they were working in a rural area, farm community. My father and grandfather farmed, raising wheat and corn. And my mom had a vegetable garden that I worked in early as 4 years old. So I annoyed my uncle and my grandfather so much that they taught me my alphabet and then taught me how to read simple words. So I read everything. I would read a cereal box. I would read anything, and over. Even today, I like to read. I'm reading a book.
She was always doing something. And I find myself like that a lot, and I have to slow down.
When I was 4, my grandfather, who was a blacksmith, he made a hoe for me. And I used to go work in the garden with my mom, hoeing weeds around the beans and the corn. And as we were growing up, my sisters were born. Barbara was the next one. Her name was Barbara Ann. And Barbara and I used to go out there in the garden when she was like 3 and I was 5. We would go out in the garden and find a ripe cantaloupe. And my grandfather showed us how to tell if we could hear the seeds rattling and smell the end of it, they were ripe. We would take them and drop them on the ground and break them and eat the insides. Then we would go and throw the rind away and wondered how our grandfather knew we had picked his cantaloupe or his watermelon. Never thinking about the stem was laying right there showing where we had picked it. And as we grew up, my other sister was born, Jacqueline. Jacqueline was born when I was 5. And the midwife that delivered all of us had delivered my father. And her name was Laura McDowell. And we called her Granny Laura. And I went to school, Shiloh Elementary School, which was the colored school. So when I got to the first grade, I could already read. And Miss Daniels was frustrated with me because I would yell out cat, dog, rat, whatever the word was. And she wanted the other kids to learn too. So she shut me up by getting a 2nd grade book and giving it to me to make me have to learn a little bit. And all through elementary school, I always read the books from the grade ahead of me. And the first high school that I went to was Allen High, which was it was a girls' finishing school. My mom had graduated from there. My mother and my mother's sister went to Allen High. And they really emphasized proper manners, proper deportment, proper approach, proper everything. I had to learn how to set a table. And my mother maintained that attitude with us throughout our lives. I tried to import it to my daughters.
To have dinner every night, oh my God, whether you wanted to or not, you were sitting at that table. And that was torture sometimes.
but I don't think it took. I went on to high school at Allen, and the county provided a school bus for kids going to high school. You couldn't go if you were going to a private school, and Allen was private. So the next year, my sophomore year, I transferred to Stevens Lee High School, and that's the one that I graduated from, the public colored high school. I had a boyfriend, sort of, kind of, took me to the prom, and my parents were very, very, very strict in that they were very careful about us. They always told us your reputation goes further than you do. I'll tell you, there was a boy who was interested in me. His name was Glenn Penland. I was sitting on the porch and my dad was sitting inside the house. Glenn drove up there and he was just standing on the ground and I'm sitting on the porch and he was talking to me. And my little sisters are standing around the corner making smooching sounds on their hands and being stupid. So my dad came to the door and he said, "Son, what time do you have to be home?" Now, mind you, this boy had not introduced himself to my dad. He said, 10 o'clock, sir. My dad said, "Well, if you get started now, you won't be late, will you?" He said, "No, sir. See you, Janie." Got in his car, he left, and he never spoke to me again. There were a couple of other guys that would talk to me on the school bus, but nobody came to my house because everybody had heard that Benny Underwood had a gun. My dad had 2 guns, and they just weren't coming. They weren't taking any risk. And I'm sure Glenn passed the word, "Don't go." But my last year of high school, my best friend had a brother, and he would talk to me, and he actually came and asked my father if he could take me out to a movie. My father wanted to know what movie thought he was taking me to. What time will he get out? He told him, he said, "Well, you got 30 minutes to get her back here from Asheville." Well, my goodness. We went to the movie and he busted his gas tank getting me back home on time. And that was like my dating. I would say, "I want to go to a basketball game." My daddy asked me, "And what are you going to do with basketball when you get grown?" So there wasn't really a lot of entertainment in my life. I was telling my kids the other day, I've never been to a bar. I've never been to a club. I've never been to any place like that. I've been to a few movies. So it kind of formed my life. While I was in high school, my guidance counselor was Miss Rumley, Jacqueline Rumley, and she was really concerned about my future. She called me in and talked to me about what I was going to do when I graduated from high school. I had no idea, because all I knew was I did not want to just wash dishes and sweep floors. But I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was also worried. And as I told you before, I read a lot, and I read a book, and this book was about a forensic pathologist. Was really fascinated with the work he did and really thought that was what I wanted to do. So she helped me write letters to different places to get information about it. One place replied that the school that I had attended did not support medical school. You had to be a doctor to be a pathologist. But maybe I would like to be a laboratory technologist. So I wanted to know, where could I go to do that? Because that sure sounded better than washing people's clothes and watching their bad children. We found out there was a college in the area, Warren Wilson College at Swananoa, North Carolina. They had a work-study program. because I knew my parents could not afford for me to go to college.
Just that she was determined to get her education.
So when I was accepted at Warren Wilson, I was thrilled. I went to work there in the summer, 17 years old. Started working on the landscape crew. And I raked lawns, I mowed hillsides, I mowed grass, I pulled weeds out of flower beds, planted tulips. And my landscape supervisor was Dr. Jensen. One weekend, Dr. Jensen told us that we had new students coming, and some of them were from Africa. And he wanted me to be on the welcoming committee. I didn't have any idea where Africa was. Couldn't have pointed to it on a map for nothing. But I decided, okay, I've got to get through this, just like mowing those stupid hillsides.
She's strong. She is one to persevere. You've heard like through some of the other interviews and things like that, like how she is just somebody that is constantly on the go, and just hearing the stories is just like, I think some of that's kind of rubbed off on me. I have a tendency to bite off more than I can chew. But at the end of the day, always making sure that I put my best foot forward.
There were three students. They were all male. Took them to the boys' dorm and told them that they had like 15 minutes to take their luggage up. I was actually surprised that they had suitcases, several. And they were dressed in all these fine suits and shoes shining, and because I thought they were gonna get off the plane. When loincloth. So I gave all of them the short tour. One of them was real cute. He was handsome. I gave him the long tour.
I think she fell in love with him the first time she saw him. She always talks about how he got off the plane and she saw him in that suit, and she thought he probably got the suit at the airport. Like, he's coming from Africa. She didn't know anything.
I showed him the girls' dorm where I stayed. Showed him the library, took him throughout the library. The other ones I showed, this is the library. Him, I showed all of the books in the library. I showed him where the music hall was, everything. This is where you get your mail. I didn't care if the others I didn't think they got mail. Who writes from Africa? Anyway, I made sure that he knew that I was interested in him. So we met for dinner, and I wanted him to eat with me. We ate family style. The other two came over and joined the group. Shoot. Anyway, I noticed he ate British style, and he's holding his fork in the left hand, cutting with his right hand. And I'm like, why is he doing that? And I'm eating with my right hand. So he started trying to change and eat like we did. And as time went on, he also became interested in me. And I found out that he was a math whiz. He had studied architecture for 3 years, so he was good with math. Suddenly I needed tutoring in math. And he helped me with my math.
She really loved him, and he really loved her.
And as time went on, we realized that we really loved each other. And we sort of dated. And then he asked me if I would be interested in marrying him. Yeah, because I loved him. I really loved him very much. So we went off one Thursday and got married.
I think they genuinely loved each other. I think I think he was the love of her life.
And we told my parents a week or so later that I was married. My father said, "You're old enough to get married, you're old enough to take care of yourself." That meant don't ask him for no more money. But my husband and I went on to school. We did not tell the school we were married because you weren't supposed to be married at that school. By this time, we had finished up our 2 years. I was pregnant. He went to University of Wisconsin to finish up, where he majored in chemistry and math. He was a double major. And we were living in a little closet. It was too small to even put a baby bassinet in. My mom told me, it's getting cold in Wisconsin.
So they kind of grew up together, I think. And their marriage has been a real example, I think, for how to stay married. You really have to grow and change with somebody, and they did that.
And she talked to my husband and told him, I think it's getting too cold out there for her to stay. And we didn't have transportation. Getting to a hospital, which was many miles away, would have been a real issue. So my mom said, tell her to come back home. I got on the bus and I went back to North Carolina.
My name is Lydia Viola Washuka Kichia Black. I am the oldest of 4 girls, just like she's the oldest of 4 girls.
That's where my first baby was born, in Asheville, North Carolina. And when he saw her, he was adoring her. And that's Lydia. And that was my transition to motherhood. We had moved to Massachusetts when Lydia was 2. He had finished college. And we went to live in Massachusetts, and we stayed there for a while. That's where he started working for the Breck Company. And we made some real nice friends there. And Breck moved us to New Jersey. And we lived in an apartment building, Riverview Towers. But I went back to Asheville to have Barbara because there was nobody to look after Lydia. Nancy was born while we were living in the Riverview Towers also. By this time, we were getting a little bit crowded in our 2-bedroom apartment.
You know, my mom always said she was raising daughters who wouldn't need a husband. And because I think the life and the time she grew up in, you were expected to get married. And if you went to college, it was to get your MRS degree. It wasn't to actually learn anything. But she went to actually learn something, so she didn't need a husband. One story my mom told us that stuck with me was when she was pregnant with Nancy, her 3rd baby in '69. She said she was like 8 months pregnant, and she was working as a nurse at the hospital, and there's another nurse who was 8 months pregnant, but that nurse had the next degree up. I don't know if it was a bachelor's or a master's, whatever, but she had the next degree up. And that woman's husband died in a car accident, and she was able to continue living her life and was fine. And my mom realized, holy crap, I would not be okay. I would not be okay without my husband. I need to do whatever to be able to support my children by myself. And so she told me that story. That always stuck with me. I didn't want to ever need a man, have one, but never need a man and never be dependent on one.
While I was studying nursing at William Patterson University, I was one day listening to the news, and there was a commercial on for midwifery. So I looked into going to Columbia University, which was what the midwifery commercial was about. Applied to Columbia and was accepted. Meanwhile, I had completed my bachelor's in nursing at William Patterson University.
My fondest memory of her, because she was just determined, she's like, I'm gonna get this degree, I'm gonna get that degree, I'm gonna get that degree. And when she graduated with her PhD, I asked her, I said, are you done now? Because there's really nowhere else to go up from there.
Everybody talks about her education, and how impressive that was to come from where she came from and end up where she is now and be able to have that title. It comes with a lot of hard work.
This is a thread. I told you about the midwife that delivered my father and delivered me. And my baby sister was the last delivery that she did. The week that my midwifery certification came through, she died. But my dad went and told her that I had been certified as a midwife. So I'm sure Granny Laura was happy. The midwifery was going to continue. And I spent 45 years working as a nurse midwife. I loved it. I wished I could do it now. My goal was to work until I was 80 as a nurse midwife.
I had enough courage later in life to go back to school for what I really enjoyed, and that's because I saw my mother in nursing, and it was her passion. It was what she loved to do, and I decided I'm not gonna sit and spend the rest of my life just working. I'm gonna actually get into what I love to do and make a difference. And she's inspired me to write a book. She wrote a book for her PhD, so I'm gonna figure something out and get a book, squeeze a book out. See, the projects, I've already got, just like her. My mother was a force to be reckoned with.
So I delivered babies in Presbyterian Hospital, Harlem Hospital, and had some really wonderful preceptors. Then I went on to work at Martland Medical Center. Went on, actually set up a private practice. Myself and another one of the graduates that had graduated with me, Michelle. And it was courtesy of Dr. Short. And we were delivering at Patterson General Hospital in Wayne, New Jersey. We were delivering babies there. We did well.
And I just think some of that I think it's in our blood, like for sure. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like if there's something that needs to be done, something that needs to be taken care of, we will find a way to get it done the right way with great quality.
But eventually it got to be too much because I was working in the Planned Parenthood clinic and doing this. And my partner was also working. So we decided to dissolve the practice, and we did. Being the wife of a Kenyan, we went to Kenya in '73 and took three children. We had 3 children at that time. And they had a great time with their grandparents and their cousins. And while I was there, my mother-in-law asked me, she said, "You're a nurse." And she was showing me around the village where my husband had gone to school and different things. And she said, "I want you to come back here and open a clinic." And eventually she got very forceful. And when a Kikuyu is emphasizing something, they do this. When she started doing this and telling me, "Atarere," I'm like, ooh, atarere is listen.
Loyalty. Wanting to the best of your ability, give and help someone who needs it, and not expect anything in return. Because she's made a lot of sacrifices for people.
So I told her, okay. She never let me forget it as long as she lived. 2001, I opened that clinic in the house that she had lived in. She was already deceased and nobody was living in it. The clinic is still in full operation.
I got a lot from her. I think in a good way. I'm an attainer, so I always am trying to get to the next thing, do the next thing. I'm always chasing the next assignment, project, whatever. In a bad way, very controlling. Working on that too.
We were living in the apartment. We had 3 children, and the apartment was getting too small for us to live there. And I wanted a house, and getting a house was more than financially difficult. It was culturally difficult because my husband did not think, because he was not an American citizen, that he could buy a house. So I worked real hard, and we saved up the money and looked for a house. We found a very nice house on the east side of Patterson.
Oh, I loved it. It was huge. It was 4 stories, basement, 2 floors, attic. Every floor was useful. We had a lot of room. We were able to go outside and play with all the kids in the neighborhood.
My children had a yard to play in. They didn't have to play on concrete. They could play on grass. They had a neighborhood children that they could play with. Talking about each of my children, Lydia has always been very reclusive. She's never wanted to be first one in line. She's never wanted to be up front. She used to go to a dance class, and the dance teacher would try to profile Lydia. Lydia wanted to be in the back line. Barbara was always very adventurous. She's out there. She doesn't mind going and looking for what she wants. She wants to do it right now. She's very organized. From 18 months of age, she showed her tendency to organize. One day in the apartment, she came and got me money. She had lined up all the shoes in the house, from the largest to the smallest. And she was very proud and I was proud that this baby had recognized the difference in sizes. Nancy has always been a very active. She was verbal very early. Talked probably 13 months. She didn't say Bob. She would say my bottle. Nancy, at 13 months of age, climbed up on a table and jumped off and hit her head on a corner. And she cut it. And she still bears that scar. Jerry was also very assertive. She wanted to go to school when she was 3 years old. I was taking her to a babysitter. One day, my mother was visiting me. It was in December. We were in the house, and all of a sudden I feel this cold draft, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the door is open. I can't find my child. I am not gonna call my husband and tell him I lost your baby. I got in the car and drove around several blocks, I'm like, well, I better call the police. So I called the police. They went through the 18 rooms. I told them I went through the house. Police standing there talking to me, trying to calm me down, and they got a call. A woman about 4 blocks over from our house had seen this child out there, 3 years old. And she didn't think this child looked like she should be on the street by herself. So she corralled her and took her in her house and called the police and told them that she had this child. Well, they said, we might have found your baby. They took me over there, and it was Jerry. I wanted to know, where were you going? She said, and she had her 2 dolls, and she was taking them to show them where she wanted to go to school. So I knew I had to do something. So I found a daycare that had a program outside of the daycare where they took children for arts and crafts. We would drop her off at the daycare. They would put her on the little bus and drive her to school. And that satisfied her until she got to be 4 and she could go to the early childhood program.
We were very well protected by my mom and dad, very well protected.
I'm very proud of each of them. Each of my daughters have been very successful in their lives. All of them are married, and I don't use married as a guideline, but I'm just saying each of them has married. They have found a mate in life. They have been very successful in their career choices, and not one of them am I ashamed of. There's not one of them that I go, not one of them. And then I became a grandmother. I had a grandson. His name was Marvin Keneal Black. He was born in 87, 10/9/87. He was the cutest little thing. And when he was born, I let his mother hold him. I let his father hold him. And I took my baby. And he and I were always close. He died in 07. He was 20. And he's left a hole in my life that will never be filled because I have no great-grandchildren. He would be 34 years old this year. And he had a girlfriend that he loved very much. And I'm sure that had he lived, they would have been married and have a couple of kids. I would have some great-grandbabies. I don't have any. So that's a hole in my life that can never be filled. The next one down is his brother, Evan, who is currently 30. Evan just got married.
When I came out to my family, it was not in the most ideal way, but it was just something that needed to be done. I never felt anything change except for the fact that I was more open and honest about myself and the way that I wanted to live my life, that it actually just seemed like there was a lot more love coming back in my direction.
And I don't see no children in his life no time soon. Evan is too busy dancing, teaches color guard, and he performs. Isaiah was born, that's Jerry's son. And Isaiah, he is a trip. He's going to FAMU where his mother and father both went. That's where they met.
Once I found out, that I enjoyed poetry, it really helped me connect. It felt good. It makes me want to, learn more just about Shosho. Not about the family, but just Shosho. Who is Shosho as an individual?
Samuel is a rapper. He performs as Valentine. Samuel just put out a new production yesterday. Comeback Kid. He put that out yesterday. As I said, he performs as Valentine with 2 T's.
Like her talent for when she was doing piano, that's probably what inspired me to do music.
All of my grandchildren, I have, a really close relationship with them as far as I'm concerned. Family is very important.
I never really had very many hurdles to jump because I had so many people there to help uplift me.
It means somebody actually was caring and wanted me to do better in life.
It always ends with give me some sugar, give me some social sugar. It doesn't matter what it is, but that's that right there, that little sentence. You gonna give me some social sugar? That's everything.
I wanted to give her this opportunity to capture her voice and make as much of her dream come true as possible. And hopefully that's encouragement. I always say my philosophy of life is happiness is having something to look forward to. And if we keep giving her something to look forward to, maybe she'll stick around.
I hope that I'm leaving a work ethic, that they see work as a very vital part of your life.
It was nice to see my dad's legacy there. I hope to continue it. I'm actually working with a psychiatrist in Orlando who's willing to go to the village and provide free psychiatric services, and again, another project.
I hope that a memory of me, a good memory. I hope that when any of them think about me, it's good.
When I was getting ready to get married, and my father was walking me down the aisle, he took my hand, and he had not done that since I was little, and I started crying. So when I got up there, my mother came over and leaned and said, "You don't have to do this if you don't want to." So it was just funny because she was, "Yeah, you don't have to do this if you don't want to." And I'm like, "It's okay, Mommy, it's okay."
From my own personal experience, like they were way more affectionate with us, even though my grandfather was not one to, "I love you." Like it wasn't ever like that obvious, but you know for a fact with the actions, the way that he directed conversations, it was always in your best interest.
I know there's gonna be some things that's not gonna be good. There's gonna be some things that they probably think I could have done different. And had I known different, I would have done different.
I remember like about age 5, hugs stopped. She was busy, and she shared with us that her parents, grandma, was taken from her mother when she was about 5. And granddaddy's mother died when he was about 5. So her affection stopped when she was 5. And she realized all this when she was going through therapy and was telling us, "I think that's why I stopped with y'all when you were 5. So I think it was generational trauma and not necessarily an intentional thing. But I think that, like I said, that generational stuff, I mean.
I also hope that despite some of the missteps in my life as a mother, that they will forgive me and realize I did the best I could with what I knew and had at that time.
From one mother to another, Mommy, I love you, and I forgive you for everything. And I want you to stick around and see Matthew grow up too. I love you.
I love you. You are my only mother, and I'm going to be here to the very end for you.
I love you, Mommy. I love you.
I love you. I am beyond thankful for the time that I've had and that I do have with you.
Don't ever think that I'm forgetting you or forgotten about you. I think about you all the time.
I love you. Hopefully you can stay here with me as much as you possibly can, so you can at least see me grow in my music, at least. Just one show, that's all I ask.
My name is Janie Elizabeth Underwood Gitchia. I am the determined achiever.